You want to know about humans? Let me tell you about the one we all thought was broken. Melissa Park. That name still makes my scales itch with embarrassment, and I am a Vexicari who has seen combat across 14 star systems. But back then, at the Andromeda Combat Institute, that human female was nothing more than entertainment during our meal breaks. The Academy, you should understand, does not accept weaklings. We had Krelthan shock troopers who could punch through titanium plating. Silarathi assassins who moved like smoke through corridors. Even the Gorth engineers, slow as they were, could calculate artillery trajectories in their heads while being shot at. And then there was Melissa. Her first physical assessment scores got posted on the common board, and I swear half the class thought it was a computer malfunction. Bench press? 43 kilograms. That is less than a Krelthan infant can lift. Sprint time? 8.2 seconds for 50 meters. My grandmother, may her carapace rest in the spawning pools, could beat that with 3 limbs missing. The combat simulator results were even worse. She got eliminated in 12 seconds by a basic training drone. 12 seconds. The drone was not even set to aggressive mode. It was on the setting we used for calibration. Look, I am not proud of how we treated her, but you have to understand the context here. The Andromeda Combat Institute graduates become the frontline defenders of the Galactic Coalition. We face pirates, slavers, and things that make pirates look like friendly neighbors. Every single cadet in that facility was the best of the best from their species, except apparently Melissa Park from Earth. During hand-to-hand drills, instructors would pair her with the smallest cadets available, and she still got tossed around like a ration pack in zero gravity. The Krelthan students started taking bets on how long she would last before washing out. I had money on week 3. She made it to month 2 somehow. Krefthor, this absolute mountain of Krelthan muscle and arrogance, he made it his personal mission to remind Melissa of her place in the hierarchy, which was, according to him, somewhere below the cleaning drones and slightly above the recycled air filters. Every morning formation he would flex his secondary arms behind her head. Every meal period he would grab the table she sat at and move it, with her still sitting there, to the corner reserved for equipment storage. She never said anything. Just ate her protein rations with this blank expression, like she was thinking about grocery lists or the weather or something equally boring. That somehow made it worse. We wanted her to quit, to scream, to cry, to give us something that proved she was at least trying. But no, Melissa Park just existed there, failing every test, getting mocked by every species, and showing all the emotional range of a particularly uninteresting rock. We all thought she was just too stupid to realize she did not belong. Turns out we were the stupid ones. Krefthor was not just the top cadet, he was a living recruitment poster, the kind of specimen that made other species question their evolutionary choices. 3 meters tall, 4 arms that could each lift a small transport vehicle, and this crest of bone ridges along his skull that apparently indicated premium Krelthan genetics. His family line went back 17 generations of undefeated pit champions on Krelth Prime. His father commanded 3 battle fleets. His mother held the record for most enemy ships destroyed in single combat. This guy? He had perfect scores in everything. Tactics, weapons proficiency, zero-gravity combat, survival training, ship-to-ship boarding actions. The instructors did not even bother grading his work anymore. They just stamped it with commendations and moved on to students who actually needed feedback. His bunk area looked like a trophy warehouse. Medals from interspecies tournaments, commendations from visiting admirals, a signed combat blade from General Thuxnar himself, the Krelthan who personally ended the Velkreth uprising. Krefthor had not even graduated yet, and he already had job offers from 6 different elite military units, and he knew it. Oh, stars above, did he know it? The social structure at Andromeda was pretty straightforward. Krelthan warriors at the top because of course they were. Silarathi stealth specialists right below them because they had killed enough Krelthan over the centuries to earn respect. Then came everyone else in various tiers based on combat effectiveness and species reputation. Humans occupied this weird novelty space. They had won a few minor conflicts. Sure, but mostly through numbers and this bizarre refusal to quit even when logic said they should. Strategically interesting but physically laughable. Their homeworld had weak gravity, their bones broke easily, and they tired quickly. Most species treated the handful of human cadets with polite curiosity, like you would treat an exotic pet someone brought to class. They were there because the coalition wanted diversity or political representation or whatever. But Krefthor, He treated Melissa like a personal insult to his species. He would schedule extra training sessions right next to wherever she was practicing, just so everyone could compare. When she failed the climbing wall exercise, he completed it using only his legs, both arms tied behind his back, blindfolded, while reciting Krothan war poetry. The other cadets followed his lead because, well, he was Krevthor. You did not contradict someone destined for command. And Melissa? She just watched him with those dark human eyes, expression never changing, while he demonstrated exactly how superior he was in every measurable way. Month 3 arrived, and Krevthor was still undefeated in every category. That was about to change in a way that would require significant medical intervention. The sparring rotation happened every week, random pairings generated by the training computer to ensure variety. Instructors loved it because it forced cadets to adapt to different fighting styles and body types. When Melissa Park's name appeared next to Krevthor's on the assignment board, the entire common area went silent for about 3 seconds. Then someone started laughing. Then everyone started laughing, except Instructor Valerix, the old Silarathi combat master who had survived more battles than most species had recorded in their entire military histories. He just stared at that board with his whiskers twitching, which usually meant he was thinking hard about something. Krevthor naturally took this as an opportunity for public theater. He announced to everyone within hearing range, which given his volume was basically the entire southern wing, that he would defeat the human using only one arm, his weakest arm. The one he had injured during advanced gunnery training last month. The betting pools went absolutely insane. No one was wagering on whether Melissa would lose. They were betting on how quickly and how badly. I personally put 20 credits on her lasting less than 15 seconds before getting knocked unconscious. The training arena filled up fast. Cadets from other divisions showed up. Even some off-duty instructors wandered in with their data pads, probably to record this for future lessons on species capability limitations or something. Melissa entered from the south entrance wearing standard sparring gear, her face showing all the emotion of someone waiting for a shuttle that was running late. Krevthor made his entrance from the north side waving 3 of his 4 arms, his 4th tucked behind his back per his promise. Valerix explained the rules. Standard non-lethal sparring protocol. Match continues until submission or incapacitation. Medical team on standby. That last part got some chuckles because obviously they were there for Melissa, not for Krevthor who had never been injured in training. Ever. The starting buzzer sounded. Krevthor charged forward like he always did, using his mass and reach advantage to overwhelm opponents before they could establish defensive positions. Standard Krothan opening move, absolutely devastating against most species. Melissa did not move. She just stood there, knees slightly bent, hands loose at her sides, watching him close the distance. 3 meters. 2 meters. 1 meter. Krevthor's punch came in fast, a straight jab aimed at her center mass that would have sent her flying into the back wall. Should have ended the match right there. Melissa moved. Not dodged. Moved. There is a difference, and I did not understand it until I watched the footage 17 times afterwards. She shifted her weight maybe 5 centimeters to the left, let his fist pass so close to her ribs that it displaced her uniform fabric, and then her hands were on his extended arm. What happened next took 1.3 seconds according to the arena chronometer. She used his momentum, his overconfidence, his assumption that she would try to block or retreat. She rotated under his arm with this fluid motion that looked almost like dancing, maintained her grip on his wrist and elbow joint, planted her feet in a stance that suddenly looked nothing like her pathetic training performances, and applied pressure in a direction that Krothan joints absolutely were not designed to bend. The crack echoed through the arena like a gunshot. Krevthor, the undefeated golden boy of the Andromeda Combat Institute, the future general, the living recruitment poster, went down screaming. His lower left leg, the one supporting his weight during the charge, had snapped cleanly just above the ankle joint, compound fracture. Bone visible through the skin plates. The silence that followed was the loudest thing I have ever heard. Melissa released his arm, stepped back, and looked at Instructor Valerix with that same blank expression she always wore. She said, and I will never forget this, "Is the match over, sir?" Valerix's whiskers were twitching so fast they were practically vibrating. He clicked his mandibles twice, which in Silarathi body language meant surprised approval. "Yes, Cadet Park. The match is over." The medical team rushed in. Krevthor was still screaming. And every single cadet in that arena suddenly realized, They had no idea who Melissa Park actually was. The medical bay at Andromeda was designed to handle species from 73 different biological classifications. The chief medical officer, Dr. Quinn Vora, was a Methodian who had literally written 3 textbooks on xenobiology and trauma surgery. She had never seen anything quite like Krevthor's injury. The break itself was clean, surgical almost. The tibia and fibula both snapped at the precise point where Kralthan bone density decreased to allow for joint flexibility. But what really got the medical team talking was the angle of the fracture. It required exact knowledge of Kralthan's skeletal structure, the kind of detailed anatomical understanding that took years of study. And the force application? Perfect. Too much pressure and the bones would have shattered into fragments requiring reconstructive implants. Too little and it would have been a partial break, painful but recoverable within days given Kralthan healing factors. No, this was calculated, deliberate, professional. Dr. Quinn Vara pulled up the arena footage on her medical display and watched it frame by frame. Her secondary eyes widened when she caught the moment of execution. Melissa's stance, her grip placement, the rotation of her hips to generate torque while Krevthor's own momentum did most of the actual work. She called in Dr. Hexnall, the orthopedic specialist, and they watched it together 5 times without speaking. Finally, Hexnall made this clicking sound with his throat sac that indicated disturbed realization. She knew exactly what she was doing. This was not luck or accident. That humans studied Kralthan anatomy specifically to learn how to disable them efficiently. The whispers started spreading through the academy faster than a hull breach alarm. Did you see the medical report? Did you watch the footage? Did you notice she never even looked strained? She has been pretending this whole time. But why would anyone hide their abilities? What kind of strategy is that? How many other humans are doing this? In the medical bay, Krevthor was not taking it well. They had him sedated for the bone reconstruction, but he kept waking up angry, thrashing against the restraints, demanding a rematch, screaming about honor and humiliation, and how it was impossible for a weak human to defeat a Kralthan warrior. His family had been notified. His father, the fleet commander, was reportedly traveling to the academy for an in-person meeting with the commandant. This was not just about a training injury anymore. This was about reputation, about Kralthan pride, about the fundamental social order that put them at the top of the combat hierarchy. Dr. Quinvera had to increase his sedation twice because he kept trying to leave the medical bay before the bone had properly fused. Meanwhile, Melissa Park had returned to her bunk, eaten her evening ration, and gone to sleep like nothing significant had happened. The other cadets started avoiding her in the corridors, not out of mockery anymore, but something else. Uncertainty maybe. Fear possibly. When you realize someone has been lying about their capabilities for months, when you understand they have been studying you while you mocked them, it changes things. Instructor Valerix requested her training records from the central database. All of them. Every assessment. Every simulation. Every physical test. He stayed up until third watch reviewing the data, and his whiskers never stopped twitching. By morning formation, everyone knew something had shifted at the Andromeda Combat Institute. The human was not what she appeared to be. And if Melissa Park was hiding her abilities, what else were humans hiding? Commandant Threxol called an emergency review board at 6th watch, which was unusual because he generally preferred to handle cadet issues through normal disciplinary channels. But this was not a normal situation and everyone knew it. The review room held 7 senior instructors, 2 combat analysts, and Dr. Quinvara from medical. They had 4 holographic displays running simultaneously, each showing different angles and data streams from 3 months of Melissa Park's academy records. Instructor Valerix started with the sparring match footage, slowing it down to quarter speed. Every movement Melissa made was precise, controlled, efficient, zero wasted energy, perfect weight distribution. Textbook execution of a joint lock technique that was not even taught at the academy because it required too much anatomical knowledge to be practical in multi-species combat. Then he pulled up her previous assessment videos. The contrast was staggering. During her initial combat evaluations, Melissa moved like someone who had never thrown a punch in her life. Clumsy footwork, telegraphed movements, poor balance. But when Valerix synchronized the footage with biometric data, something interesting appeared on screen. Her heart rate never elevated above resting levels. Her breathing remained steady. Her muscle tension indicators showed deliberate relaxation, not exhaustion or panic. She was faking incompetence so convincingly that the biometric sensors almost missed it. Combat analyst Revnash a Corellian who specialized in tactical deception, leaned forward with all three of his eye stalks focused on the data. Pull up the obstacle course runs, all of them. They watched 6 different attempts. Melissa failed each one, always in different ways. Slipped on the climbing wall, lost her grip on the rope traverse, and stymied the jump across the gap. But Rivnash had the computer overlay her joint angles and movement patterns across all 6 runs. The failures happened at different points. Sure, but the biomechanics were identical every time. Same muscle engagement, same energy output, same controlled descent when she fell. She was failing on purpose, and she was making each failure look unique enough that no one would notice the pattern. Commandant Threxel's head crest flattened against his skull, which for his species indicated serious concern. How long has she been doing this? Since arrival? Valerix pulled up her entrance examination scores. Bottom percentile in every category. Since before arrival, Commandant. She failed enough of the preliminary testing that the review board almost rejected her application. There were 3 override requests from human diplomatic channels just to get her admitted. The room went quiet except for the hum of the holographic displays. Dr. Quinara broke the silence. I need to say something and you are not going to like it. I examined her muscle density during a routine physical last month. Her actual strength capacity is at least 3 times what she demonstrated in testing. Possibly high. Threxel stood up, his full 2.8 meters of command presence filling the room. Get me her file, her complete file, and get me transcripts of every conversation she has had with other cadets. If she has been running this level of operational security for 3 months, I want to know why. Analyst Rivnash was still staring at the combat footage, watching Melissa snap Krefthor's leg over and over. He said what everyone was thinking, but no one wanted to voice out loud. What if all the humans are doing this? What if everything we think we know about their species' capabilities is deliberately false information? The commandant did not answer. He just kept watching the displays where Melissa Park's blank expression stared back at them from a dozen different angles. She had made fools of them all, and she had done it so perfectly that they had never suspected a thing until she decided to stop pretending. The question was not what she could do anymore. The question was what else was she planning? Krefthor was released from medical after 6 days with a reinforced bone graft and strict orders to avoid combat training for 2 weeks minimum. He ignored those orders approximately 4 hours later. He showed up at morning formation with a visible limp, his leg still in a stabilization brace, and made his announcement loud enough that cadets from 3 different divisions could hear him clearly. Melissa Park, I challenge you to an official combat bout. Full contact. No restrictions. You got lucky once because I underestimated your species. That will not happen again. The formation area went dead silent. Official combat bouts were rare, usually reserved for settling serious disputes between cadets when normal disciplinary procedures were not sufficient. They required authorization from the commandant, medical clearance for both participants, and a formal witnessed agreement. They also had no safety limits beyond lethal force prohibition. Broken bones were expected. Serious injuries were common. Cadets had been permanently disabled in official bouts before. Melissa turned to look at Krefthor with that same blank expression she always wore. She let the silence stretch out for a good 10 seconds while everyone waited. Then she said, "Okay. Just that." Okay. Like he had asked her to pass the salt rations or check the duty roster. Krefthor's crest flushed dark purple, which meant either rage or embarrassment. Possibly both. You will regret humiliating me, human. I will break more than your leg. I will break your confidence, your reputation, your future in this academy. Melissa nodded once. We should probably schedule it after your medical clearance comes through. Commandant Threxel will not approve the bout while you are still injured. That was actually a decent point, and it made Krefthor even angrier because she was right and everyone knew it. He limped away, his 3 uninjured arms clenched into fists. The reaction among the other top-ranked cadets was interesting to watch. Sharik, a Silrathi who held 2nd place in close combat rankings, started spending extra time in the training simulators. She ran Melissa's sparring match footage on loop, studying the technique, trying to figure out counters. Brunkol, the Gorth heavy weapon specialist ranked 4th overall, began asking quiet questions about human anatomy during tactical briefings. What were their weak points? How much force could their joints withstand? What environmental factors affected their performance? The Methodian tactical students started building probability models, If Melissa had hidden her abilities this effectively, what were the statistical odds that other human cadets were doing the same? What about human military forces in general? How much of humanity's combat doctrine was based on deliberate misinformation? I caught 3 different cadets attempting to access classified files on human military engagements. The Academy security protocols flagged all of them. Melissa, for her part, continued her normal routine. She showed up for formations. She ate her meals. She performed at the same pathetic level during supervised training exercises, which now felt less like failure and more like theater. But I noticed something new. During free training periods, she would disappear into the solo simulation rooms for hours. No one could access what program she was running because she had encrypted her training logs, which was technically allowed but rarely done because most cadets wanted their practice scores recorded for ranking purposes. The commandant approved the official bout after 8 days, once Krevthor's medical scans showed sufficient bone fusion. The match was scheduled for week's end in the main arena. Dr. Quinvara's medical team started preparing for mass casualties, which seemed excessive until she explained her reasoning. If the human has been hiding this level of capability and she decides to stop hiding during an unrestricted bout, we need to be ready for anything. Krevthor is angry, wounded in pride and desperate to restore his reputation. That makes him dangerous but also predictable. She pulled up Melissa's file on her medical display, staring at the deliberately falsified assessment data. Her though? We have no idea what she is actually capable of, and that terrifies me more than any weapon I have ever treated injuries from. The betting pools opened again, but this time the odds were very, very different. Krevthor was no longer the guaranteed favorite, and that shift in confidence, that uncertainty about outcomes, spread through the academy like a virus, infecting every conversation, every tactical discussion, every quiet moment when cadets wondered if they actually knew anything real about humans at all. 3 days until the bout. The tension was thick enough to require a cutting torch. The main arena was packed beyond regulation capacity. Cadets stood shoulder to shoulder, some perched on equipment crates, others watching through the observation windows from adjacent corridors. Word had spread to other divisions, other academies even. I heard that 3 transport shuttles had arrived carrying off-duty personnel who wanted to witness this. The betting pools had reached absurd numbers. People were wagering months of pay on the outcome. Krevthor entered first, fully healed now, all 4 arms flexing in sequence as he performed his traditional Krothan war ritual. His crest was bright crimson, showing maximum aggression and confidence. He had spent the last 3 days training non-stop, reviewing Melissa's technique, preparing counters for every possible move she might attempt. He looked ready to tear through a reinforced bulkhead with his bare hands. Melissa entered from the opposite side wearing standard combat gear, her dark hair tied back, her face showing about as much emotion as a navigation computer. She did some basic stretches, rolled her shoulders twice, and then just stood there waiting. Commandant Threxel took position at the referee station. This is an official combat bout under Coalition training protocols. Victory by submission, incapacitation or referee stoppage. Lethal force is prohibited. Medical teams are standing by. Do both participants understand the terms? Krevthor roared his acceptance, the sound echoing off the arena walls. Melissa said, "Yes, sir." The starting buzzer sounded. This time Krevthor did not charge recklessly. He had learned that lesson. He advanced carefully, using his reach advantage, keeping his weight distributed, protecting his joints. Smart tactical adjustment. It did not matter. Melissa moved forward to meet him, and everything about her body language changed in an instant. The clumsy cadet who failed obstacle courses vanished, replaced by something that moved like liquid violence. She closed the distance before Krevthor could establish his defensive spacing. Her first strike hit his lower right arm, not hard enough to break anything but precisely placed to deaden the nerve cluster at his elbow. His arm dropped, temporarily useless. His counterpunch came fast. 3 arms working in combination like they taught in advanced Krothan combat doctrine. She slipped under the first strike, redirected the second with minimal contact, and used the third arm's momentum to pull him off balance. Krevthor stumbled. Just slightly. Just enough. Melissa's kick took out his knee, the same leg she had broken before, hitting the reinforced bone graft with enough force that I heard him grunt in pain. He stayed upright though, his size and strength keeping him in the fight. She broke his stance with a low sweep, caught his descending punch mid-swing, and did something with his wrist that made him roar in pain. Some kind of pressure point technique, forcing him down to one knee. The entire sequence took maybe 7 seconds. Krefthor tried to grab her with his upper left arm, using his superior strength to crush her ribs if he could get a solid grip. She was already moving, flowing around his reach like she could predict exactly where his limbs would be before he even committed to the motion. Her elbow strike caught him in the throat, right at the vulnerable cartilage junction that Kralthan armor plating did not cover. He choked, gasping for air. She did not stop. A palm strike to his jaw snapped his head sideways. A knee to his midsection doubled him over. Her hands found nerve clusters, joint weak points, structural vulnerabilities that most species did not even know Kralthan physiology possessed. It was not a fight. It was a biology lesson delivered at combat speed. Krefthor went down hard, all 3 meters and 200 kilograms of elite warrior crashing onto the arena floor. He tried to get up, his pride refusing to accept what was happening, his body not responding the way it should. Melissa put him in a submission hold, her small human frame controlling his massive Kralthan body with leverage and technique that looked absolutely effortless. She had his arm locked, his neck compressed, his options reduced to exactly 0. "Submit," she said quietly. Not angry, not excited, just stating a fact. Krefthor tried to break free for another 5 seconds, his muscles straining, his face contorted with effort and humiliation. Then he tapped the mat 3 times, the universal signal for submission. Melissa released him immediately and stepped back. The arena was completely silent. No cheering, no celebration, just shocked, horrified, fascinated silence, as several hundred cadets processed what they had just witnessed. The undefeated golden boy of the Andromeda Combat Institute had lasted approximately 42 seconds, and Melissa Park had not even looked tired. Commandant Threxel's voice came over the arena speakers, steady but carrying an edge that suggested he was deeply unsettled. Match concluded. Victory to Cadet Park by submission. The medical team rushed in to check on Krefthor, who was still lying on the mat, staring at the ceiling, his entire worldview shattered into pieces. Instructor Valorix approached Melissa as she walked toward the exit. His whiskers were doing that twitching thing again. "How long have you been training, Cadet Park?" "Real training, not the performance you have been giving us." Melissa paused, considering the question like she was deciding whether to answer honestly. Finally, she said, "Since I was 6 years old, sir. My family has a tradition. 12 different martial arts, full combat medicine certification, detailed xenobiology studies for 73 coalition species. We take self-defense very seriously on Earth." Valorix's whiskers stopped twitching, and the pretending to be incompetent. "Also a family tradition, sir. My grandfather had a saying, 'Let them underestimate you, then show them what humans actually are when they stop paying attention.'" She nodded once, respectfully, and left the arena. Behind her, the whispers started spreading again, faster and more panicked than before. If this was what one human could do when they stopped pretending, what would happen when humanity decided to show the galaxy what they were actually capable of? That question kept a lot of cadets awake that night. It still keeps me awake sometimes, and I graduated 4 years ago. Graduation day arrived 3 months later, and the academy rankings had been completely reorganized. Melissa Park stood at position 7 in the final class standings. Not first, which surprised everyone who had watched her dismantle Krefthor. Not even top 5, just comfortably in the upper quarter, good enough for excellent assignment offers, but not so high that she attracted excessive attention. Krefthor graduated at position 12. Still respectable, still destined for military service, but the golden boy shine had worn off completely. His family stopped sending official communications after the bout. He stopped making grand announcements. He just trained quietly and kept his head down. The really interesting part was watching how the other cadets adjusted their behavior. Sharik, the Silarathi combat specialist, started studying human history during her free time. She found records of something called Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Krav Maga, Sistema, Muay Thai. Dozens of different fighting systems developed over thousands of years, each one designed to let smaller, weaker humans defeat larger, stronger opponents. Humans had been refining the art of punching above their weight class for their entire evolutionary history. Brun Cole, the Gorth heavy weapon specialist, changed his tactical dissertation topic from shield wall formations to asymmetric warfare doctrine. He spent hours analyzing human military campaigns, finding patterns of misdirection, false retreats, ambushes disguised as defeats. The Methodian students recalculated their probability models and came to a disturbing conclusion. If humanity had been using deliberate deception as a species-wide strategy, then every recorded encounter, every diplomatic negotiation, every trade agreement might be built on incomplete or deliberately false information. The galaxy thought it understood humans. Weak but numerous. Stubborn but not particularly dangerous. Useful allies for certain situations, but not a primary military concern. What if that entire perception was intentional? I caught up with Melissa 2 days before graduation, found her in the observation deck looking out at the stars. She was alone, which was common now. Most cadets gave her space, unsure how to interact with someone who had been lying so effectively for months. I asked her the question everyone wanted answered, but were too afraid to voice. Was it all strategy? The weakness, the failures, the mockery you endured? Was it all just to make us underestimate your species? Melissa was quiet for a long moment, still staring at the stars. Then she said, "My instructor back on Earth, Master Chin, he told me something before I left for the academy. He said that humans survived for thousands of years not because we were the strongest or the fastest or the smartest. We survived because we learned to adapt, to hide, to make predators think we were not worth the effort of hunting." She turned to look at me, and for the first time since I met her, there was something in her expression beyond that blank mask. Something that looked almost sad. Every species in the coalition looks at humans and sees prey animals who got lucky. Weak gravity worlders with fragile bodies and short lifespans. They see us and think we are not a threat. That perception keeps us safe. It gives us room to grow, to learn, to prepare. Prepare for what? I asked. She smiled then, just slightly, and it was not a particularly comforting expression. For whatever comes next. The galaxy is a dangerous place, and history taught us that being underestimated is better than being feared. Because when people fear you, they attack you first. When they underestimate you, they never see the counterattack coming. She went back to watching the stars. I left her there and went back to my bunk, thinking about her words, about the implications, about what it meant that an entire species had weaponized the appearance of weakness. Graduation ceremonies happened the next morning. We all received our assignments, our commendations, our official entry into coalition service. Melissa Park got assigned to a diplomatic protection detail on a frontier station. Light duty, nothing fancy, the kind of posting you give to someone competent but not exceptional. I got assigned to a patrol cruiser in a peaceful sector. Krevthor got frontline deployment in a conflict zone, which for Kralthan warriors was actually an honor despite his reduced ranking. We all went our separate ways, scattered across the galaxy to serve the coalition in our various capacities. But I still think about Melissa sometimes, about that conversation on the observation deck, about the careful way humanity moves through galactic politics, like they are always 3 steps ahead of everyone else. And I wonder, late at night when my shift ends and the stars look particularly cold and distant, I wonder what humans are actually preparing for. What threat do they see coming that the rest of us are too blind or too arrogant to notice? That question bothers me more than any combat scenario I have faced in 4 years of active service. Because if humans felt the need to hide their capabilities this thoroughly, this systematically, this effectively, then somewhere out there is something that scared them enough to build an entire species-wide strategy around deception and misdirection. And whatever scares humans, whatever made them spend thousands of years learning how to fight things bigger and stronger than themselves, whatever threat they are quietly preparing for while the rest of the galaxy mocks their weakness, that thing should absolutely terrify the rest of us. But we are too busy underestimating them to notice. Just like Melissa planned. Just like all of humanity planned. And that, more than anything else, is what makes humans dangerous. Not their strength. Not their technology. Not their numbers, their patience, their willingness to be mocked, to be dismissed, to be laughed at, all while they study you, learn your weaknesses, and prepare for the moment when pretending is no longer necessary. I graduated from the Andromeda Combat Institute 4 years ago. I still have no idea what humans are actually capable of. And honestly, I am not sure I want to find out.